Assalamu alaikum, dear students. In this lecture, we are going to critically analyze September 1st, 1939, written by W.H. Auden. So, in the previous lecture, we analyzed his other poem that was The Unknown Citizen. So, I guess now you'll be having a bit of knowledge how he's writing his poetry. So let's have an overview of the poem. That this poem is basically written soon after his migration to America, and if you remember in the introductory lecture, we talked about that how his time period in America is different than his time period in England. Okay, and it is the time period when you have the start of the Second World War. So in this poem, he basically expresses his disgust with the totalitarian government, and he even expresses his disgust with the propaganda nature or propagandist nature of the government, and also has criticized the American, you can say, American isolationist stance during this Second World War at the start. And apart from that, he has also talked about that how it was not only Germany to be blamed for the Second World War, but every other country was also having the same, you can say, attitude toward the Second World War. So it was all about, the totalitarian government, the propagandas which they have used, and how all those things have influenced individual lives, and how the individual living in these countries have been influenced by the wartime. Okay, and at the end, obviously, he has ended the poem on a very optimistic note that we, or the humans, or the individual, can only, you can say, seek calm or peace when we love one another. Okay, that is how the humanity is going to win over all these things. So let's have an analysis of the poem. So we'll first see the first stanza of the poem. I sit in on the dives of 52nd Street, uncertain and afraid as the clever hopes expire of a low dishonest decade. So we come to know that he is sitting some in a dive. Okay, dive is a bar, and he's talking about a specific dive or a bar of on 52nd Street. Okay, it's a bar which is known to be a gay bar in America at that time. Okay, it was famous, or let's say notorious, for gay meetings. And one other thing about Auden was this, that in his private life he was a gay, which he never expressed very openly, by the way. So he was sitting in a dive. Okay, and he was uncertain and afraid as the clever hopes. Okay, you know the title of the poem. It is 1st September 1939. It is the onset of the Second World War. Okay, so he's sitting in the bar and he's uncertain. He's uncertain about the future, and he's afraid. Why afraid? Because the clever hopes expire of a low dishonest decade. Okay, the clever people, or the clever people who were involved in one of the treaty which they have signed with Hitler. If you remember, we talked about that treaty which they signed, which the France and Britain, they signed with Germany in order to give some part of Sutherland to Germany. Fine, and it was considered to be achieving the peace of time, because there was famous slogan by one of the president. He said that we have achieved the peace of our time, and that was not a peace, by the way, because then Hitler tried to, it tried to go and march on the other countries as well. So it is reference to that thing, by the way, that how uh, the uncertain the people were because of the Second World War, and they were afraid because all those clever hopes, all those hopes which they wanted to achieve the peace of their time, they have expired. Okay, there is no peace now. The Second World War has started. Okay, waves of anger and fear circulate over the bright and darkened lanes of the earth. Waves of anger obviously with this dishonest decade, with this, the failed, you can say, intervention to stop this Second World War, okay, with all that was anger as well, and there was fear as well. Then now what's going to happen? So you find this chaos as well, that people are angry as well, and the people are afraid as well. That now what? Now what is going to happen? Because they have already seen the First World War, they have seen the devastation of the First World War. So now they are uncertain that what kind of things are going to be in the Second World War. So uncertainty and anger is prevailing in the first stanza. Okay, and obsessing our private lives on all these things, and all these political things, or all these general things have infiltrated the minds of the common people and their private lives. Even the common people, the people in their private lives are suffering with all these things. The unmentionable order of death. Which unmentionable order of death? Obviously it is reference to the First World War as well, that how the order of death was there, how many people have lost their lives there. So there is an unmentionable order of death which offends the September night. Which September night? Obviously the first September night, where you have the start of the Second World War. Okay, so it is, you know, reference to the First World War, and how that unmentionable order of death can be there in the Second World War as well, which has already started. Now on the other level, this whole stanza, or let's say this whole poem of Auden, it alludes to Easter 1916 by Yeats. Okay, in that poem he talks about the common people who become revolutionary and who bring about the Easter rising. Okay, the individual fighting for a common cause. But here a common cause and its influence on the individual life is discussed. Okay, that how, you know, not the overall political scenario he's talking about, that how the individual have contributed to it, but he is here in this poem talking about that how the events, how the general event has influenced the common people and their lives. In the other, the common people contributing toward the cause. Here, how those common causes have influenced the individual people. Okay, so you can draw a comparison between the two poems. Okay, in the second stanza, let's move. Accurate scholarship can unearth the whole offence from Luther until now. Obviously a reference to Martin Luther, okay, the German scholar who started this Protestantism movement back in Renaissance age, or in the Reformation era. So accurate scholarship, the scholarship or the history which is accurate, which is not biased, or the factual history, it can unearth the whole offense. The whole offense of what? The whole offense of starting the Second World War. Mean that if we try to dig out the actual reason behind the Second World War, then we can see it from the Luther, okay, from Luther, Martin Luther, back in your Renaissance age, that has driven a culture mad. Okay, unearth the whole offense from Martin Luther, who was also German. Okay, and it is basically said that Luther's ideas, they drove a whole culture mad. And mad about what? Against Jews, anti-Semitism. You can see here that it needs to be dig out that how this one this offense, this Second World War, it did not start just in one day. It has its roots somewhere. Okay, from if starting from Luther, and then we move toward the other ages, that has driven a culture, the culture of Germany. Obviously it has made. Find what occurred at Linz. Okay, then the historian may find that what has occurred at Linz. Linz is the place where Adolf Hitler, you know, he was born and he was growing up. Okay, and it was this place where he inherited his fundamental worldview, and that worldview, that imago, it has turned him into a psychopathic god. Okay, so it means that okay, let's read on. I and the public know what all school children learn. Those to whom evil is done do evil in return. Now in this whole stanza, on one level he may be referring to this thing, that this Second World War was not just in one day that Hitler was having that kind of psychopathic attitude towards the Jews. It was not just built in one day, it has causes, okay? And then he said that if we dig out the scholarship, then we may see it from the times of Martin Luther, that how one whole nation, the German nation, has been turned against the Jews. Or on the other hand, we may see that what has occurred at Linz on the personal level of Adolf Hitler. For that you need to read the history of Adolf Hitler or his biography, that how different psychological events, different events in his childhood has led him to be that much psychopathic that he became a totalitarian dictator. Okay, I and the public know what all school children learn. Okay, and he said that even I and all the people know that what even the children learn in their school. To those to whom evil is done, do evil in return. Those to whom evil is done, through the Germans, okay, to the German the evil is done. Now, is this the evil which is done to the German nation in Treaty of Versailles? If you remember, in the First World War, it ended on Treaty of Versailles. Remember, is it a reference to that evil because it is also known to be the cause of the Second World War, or it can be reference to Hitler's childhood traumas? It may have also led to the Second World War, or it may be reference to the plight of the German working class of the Treaty of Versailles. Okay, so obviously the evil is done to them, maybe through the treaties of Versailles or maybe to the Hitler, and that has resulted in the Second World War. It means that it is not only Germany, but it is also other people as well who were involved in inflicting horror on them, and then in return they have taken the revenge. Okay, so we can analyze it in that way. Okay, coming to the third stanza. Exiled Thucydides knew all that a speech can say about democracy, and what dictators do, the elderly rubbish they talk, to an apathetic grave, analyzed all in his book. The enlightenment driven away, the habit forming pain, mismanagement and grief, we must suffer them all again. So in this stanza we have a reference, we have an allusion that is to Thucydides. Thucydides is basically to Greek, you can say, literature. He was a historian and he was a military general as well. Okay, so you need to know the story of Thucydides, that how, and after knowing that you can understand the whole stanza. So about Thucydides, as we know from history, he was a military general and he was exiled by another, you can say, the king Pericles, or whatsoever is the pronunciation. He was exiled from Athens because he failed in one of the military mission. Fine. And he was a historian, and at that time he was writing a history, a great war history, that was spelled war history of the old times. Okay, so it contains that history, that book basically contains that time leader praise. Paean is basically praise, and he was praising the democracy. It's very ironic, okay, because he's praising the democracy and at the same time he's committing atrocities. Okay, so that praise of this person is known to be the strongest pro-democratic statement of ancient time. But Thucydides, this person, okay, he presents his speech in his book ironically. Okay, and he believed that the speech of this person is a propaganda. Okay, a propaganda which is all about self-interest, because he wanted to glorify himself, he wanted to conquer the other nation in the war, and that's why he has praised the Athenians in his speech, okay, that to an apathetic grave. Okay, it's about, so it can be said that Pericles' pain can be related or can be compared to Hitler's speeches. If you ever have time, do listen to Hitler's speech. He was a wonderful orator. Okay, he was having the power to move the audience. For that you need to watch his speeches, which are available on internet. Okay, or apart from Hitler's speeches, it can be compared to the speeches of the Western leaders during that time as well. That how all of them were, you can say, lies. Okay, they were all propaganda against the others. Okay, Hitler propagandizing against the Western countries and Western leaders against the Hitler. So it was all about the propaganda. Okay, so this apathetic grave is again the reference that it was the, in his book he has talked about that how this person Pericles, he praised who? He praised the Athens, those people who have died in the war. Obviously it's in the funeral. So why he praised the people? Because if he praised them, they are going to fight for them. Fine. So it was, you know, he praised the sacrifice of the dead, so the others will imitate them as well, trying to, you know, more like raise encouraging them, or trying to raise the morale of the soldiers so they can fight for him more. Same is for the Hitler and the Western leaders during the Second World War as well, that they were using propagandas. So Thucydides has compared those speeches to propagandas. Okay, so now I guess you are understanding that why you have this Thucydides. So Exiled Thucydides knew all that a speech can say about democracy. All of them were talking about democracy, but they were using it as a propaganda to their own mean. Fine. The elderly rubbish they talk to an apathetic grave. The elderly rubbish means through the ages we listen to these rubbish from Pericles' time till now. Analysed all in his book. The enlightenment driven away. The habit forming, you know, the enlightenment which has been driven away due to their propagandas. Okay, the habit forming pain which people are going to suffer due to their speeches. Mismanagement and grief, we must suffer them all again. Why we must suffer them all again? Because the Second World War has started. So all of these things which through the ages the other people have suffered, now we are also going to suffer it because of this mismanagement and grief. Coming to the other stanza, into this neutral air where blind skyscraper use your full height to proclaim the strength of collective man, each language pours its swain, competitive excuse, but who can live for long in a euphoric dream? Out of the mirror they stare, imperialism's face and the international wrong. Now in this stanza, once again we are shifted to America. And here into this neutral air. Why America here is termed as neutral air? Because you know that in the Second World War at the start, America was a neutral state. Okay, it did not participate in the Second World War because of its isolationist, you can say, philosophy. Okay, so into this neutral air where blind skyscrapers, mean the tall buildings which are there in America, use their full height to proclaim the strength of collective man. Now it is a critique of your capitalism that the blind scrapers, so the blind scraper are more like, you know, the Western private enterprise or the socialist agenda, let's say, versus the common people. How the capitalistic society or how the communist society have used their personal interests and they have influenced the common, the collective, or they have, you can say, quenched the strength of the collective man in order to sustain themselves. Mean the collective man or the common man is crushed by either the Western, you can say, ideals or by the socialist or the communist ideals. Okay, so where blind skyscraper use their full height to proclaim the strength of the collective, each language pour its vain competitive excuse. Each language, the language Russian, German, English, each language pour its vain competitive, and all of these languages are having, you know, competitive excuses that why they're waging a war against the other. Okay, they are giving the excuses for each other. But who can live for long in a euphoric dream? But who is going to live in a fool's paradise for long? Everyone is going to get to know what has happened and how the things have been unfolded. Okay, it's again the irony that the government or the totalitarian government cannot hide or cannot lie for long. Everything is going to be revealed by the end of the day. Out of the mirror they stare, imperialism's face and the international wrong. Now who? The common people. They are going to steer out of the mirror and they're going to look at the imperialism face. Why imperialism face? Because of, you know, the imperialistic attitude of the Western countries at that time, how they were invading other nations and how they were exploiting them. And the international wrong, it is an international wrong by, you know, by trying to create colonial states. Okay, so it's all, I know that it's getting complex, but you need to understand these things. Okay, so coming to the other stanza. Faces along the bar cling to their average day. The lights must never go out. The music must always play. All the convention conspire to make this fort assume the furniture of home, lest we should see where we are, lost in a haunted wood, children afraid of the night, who have never been happy or good. This stanza basically, you know, you can say it can allude to T.S. Eliot, Murder in the Cathedral, one of you know, the modern drama he has written. And if you ever have chance, or if you have it in your course, then do read it, where you have how where he has tried to describe the common people, that the common people, they are clinging to their average life. Okay, they are not concerned with the major events which have taken place, though that event has influence on them. It is going to affect their life, but how they are trying to get busy in their own personal lives, or how they are, you know, how the things are going to go normally. Okay, it's all about that. For that you need to understand Murder in the Cathedral, that how the common people in that drama are not concerned with the major event which has happened with the, you know, the execution of Thomas Becket, I guess. So the light must never go out. You know, everything should be common, casual, nothing disturbance should be seen. So you may say that in this stanza it can be reference to America once again, that how that isolationist thing was influencing the common people. Okay, so the light must never go out, the music must always play, all the conventions conspire to make this fort assume the furniture of home. Everything is going to make you feel like home, that as if nothing is happening. Lest we should see where we are, until and unless we should see where we are. We are having the Second World War, so we need to see, until and unless we are going to have this realization. Okay, until and unless we are having this realization that we are lost in a haunted wood, because we are uncertain of the future, uncertain that what's going to happen. Okay, children are afraid of the night. Why afraid of the night? Because the night is having its horror, the night is having its uncertainty, the night is having its chaos. We can never see, or let's say we are confused in the night, that what is going to be come in front of us. Who have never been happy or good. Why the children have never been happy or good? Maybe reference to the German kids. Maybe, okay, we can say that how the things there has led them to participate in the Second World War. So you can come up with your own interpretation. You are free to interpret it according to your own. The windiest militant trash important persons shout is not so crude as our wish. Okay, so the windiest militant trash means the propaganda of the political leaders. We are trying, he's talking about that the windiest militant trash important person mean the political leaders who shout about the propaganda is not so crude as our wish. Okay, and it is not so crude mean it is no different from our personal feelings as well. Then he narrates a story, or let's say he alludes to another you can say allusion, let's say, and it's about two people. Okay, that is the Russian names are there, so I may not be pronouncing it properly. So Nijinsky and whatever is the second one. So what Mad Nijinsky wrote about this person is true of the normal heart. Okay, so for this line to for you to understand, you need to know the history, you need to know the event, that who are these two people and what actually he's talking about, what mad thing he has written about him. So these two are basically Russian ballet dancers, and they were lovers as well, obviously the gay lovers. Then this person, he became schizophrenic, mean he became mad at, and then he was having, you know, his time in different what you call rehabilitation centers. During that time he wrote a diary. Okay, in that diary this person, he mentioned this man, but in a very mocking way, because they were lovers, and then this person found another lover, and this has made him heartbroken. So for that he wrote these words. And what are they? It was like, you know, dyes his hair not to look old, hair is white, he buys black pads and rubs. It was all irony and his mocking. Okay, and we will see that how we can put it here in these lines. He mocked this person. He was an old man, by the way, and he was the young person, so he has mocked him that he has found a new lover, and now he's, in order to look young, he's doing all these things. Fine. So what Mad Ninjaski wrote about Degley or whatsoever is true of the normal heart. Okay, so whatsoever he has written, it is normal for, or let's say it's true for a normal loving heart. Whoever is going to love, then out of jealousy they are going to do this thing. So for the error bred in the bone of each woman and each man craves what it cannot have. Why they crave what it cannot have? Because he left Ninjaski, so that's why he is mocking him. And it's a very common trait of love that if you are left by your lover, then you might be feeling jealous if he is or she is with another person. So not universal love, but to be loved alone. So what it cannot have, not, he's talking about the universal love. He's not talking about that he's not having some universal love. He's talking about the personal love. He wanted to be loved alone by him, but he is not having. So that's why he's mocking his beloved, once beloved. Fine. So now for this time, for the time being, just keep this in mind, that he is mocking this thing, that the universal love or the general love is not favored by, but the individual love for another individual love is important. Okay, not the whole concept of the love that we humans should love. Okay, it's a very general thing. So here he is not promoting that. He's promoting that how an individual love should be given importance, as you have seen it in the Unknown Citizen as well, that individual thing need to be, you know, promoted rather than the overall things. From the conservative drug into the ethical life, the dense commuters come. Now from the conservative, from the religious dark, why out of nowhere you have this religious, and before this stanza you were having two gay lovers? It means that in his time, obviously these things were not something normal. Okay, still for us it's not normal, and it can never be normal for us Muslims, but for them it's now getting normal. So he's having a reference to that the from the conservative dark. Why conservative dark? Because according to their religion as well, in the start, now they have changed everything so much that there is nothing left to be original. So from the conservative, from the religious dark, because it was a religious sin to love another man or to love the same sex, so into the ethical life. Out of that dark, when the people, they come out, they emerge into the ethical or the public life, where they have to follow the ethical course of not following these things, the dense commuters come. The dense commuters, once again you can say it can be reference to the wasteland, T.S. Eliot wasteland, where you have crowded people coming on the London Bridge, and they are, you know, dead, shore. So you can say, or you can draw a comparison between the dense commuters and the dead there in the wasteland. Okay, so you need to recall that image of the dead people on the London Bridge who are coming. Okay, so the dense commuters come repeating their morning woe. They, out of their conservative dark, when they come to their public life, what woe they are repeating? The morning woe: I will be true to the wife, I will concentrate more on my work. Why true to the wife? Because in the previous stanza you have already seen the homosexual love there. Okay, so that's why they are going to repeat that thing again and again. Fine. To remind themselves that they have to follow the order, they have to follow the society. I will concentrate more on my work, and helpless governors wake to resume their compulsory game. Who can release them now? Who can reach the deaf? Who can speak for the dumb? Okay, so in these line actually, when everything is restored to the societal order, then he asks this question: who can release them now? Who can release these dense commuters, these governors from their mundane? Who can reach the deaf? Okay, who can speak for the dumb? Who is going to give voice to their inner feeling, to these individual feelings? Who is going to be there? Not the totalitarian government. The totalitarian government is not going to listen to them or going to read them, but there needs to be a voice. So we are getting the hint that it is Auden's voice he's talking about, okay? That why he intends to write this September 1939. Because he wants to be the voice of the individuals. Fine. So all I have is a voice to undo the folded lie. Why folded lie? The folded lie of the governments, the folded lie of the totalitarian governments. Okay. What he said, that all I have a voice. What voice he is having? Poetry. Okay. And that poetry is going to undo. It's going to reveal the lie, the folded lies, the romantic lie in the brain of the sensual man in the street. Okay, the lie which a romantic lie, I mean a very ideal lie which is there in the mind of the common people in the street, and the lie of the authority, the totalitarian, or let's say the authoritarian government, the lies of these leaders whose building grop the sky, okay, whose authority reach the sky, whose capitalistic attitude reach the sky. There is no such thing as the state. Okay, then he said that there is no such thing as the state, as the autocratic government, and no one exists alone. There is no state, but at the same time, no one can exist alone as well. Okay, hunger allows no choice to the citizen or the police. Citizen, obviously the individual; police, obviously the state power. Okay, so hunger is to the police as well and to the citizen as well. So no one exists alone. No one exists alone. Find that hunger is allowing no choice to anyone, everyone, every individual. Okay, we must love one another or die. How we are going to overcome all these things? We have to love one another or die. But there is one other thing related to this phrase or this verse here, that in later version of the poem he has replaced it with we must love one another and die. Okay, why he has done it? Because he believed that this is not possible. Okay, we must love one another or die. In either way you're going to die. Either you love or you don't love, you're going to die. Okay, so he used to hate this verse a lot. So for this reason he changed it to this verse line, we must love one another and die. So because you have to love and then die, rather than either love or die. Okay, the last stanza. Defenseless under the night, our world in stupor lies. Now again the scene of whole Second World War is coming. Defenseless under the night, our world in stupor lies. Okay, there is insensibility there. This, you can say, there is no feelings for the others. Why? Because we are defenseless under the Second World War coming, yet dotted everywhere. These dotted lights are, you know, the window lights in the night. Ironic points of light flash out everywhere. The just exchange their messages. Who are the just? The just, you know, the human beings who are committed to love one another. Okay, may I compose like them of eros and of dust. Okay, like them, like these just people who are pure, who are true in their love. May I compose like my poetry like them of eros, obviously of love. Okay, eros is god of love in Greek mythology, and of dust, of humans. Okay, of dust obviously is reference to the humans. Beleaguered by the same negation and despair, show an affirming flame. Okay, so he's talking about his poetry, that how his poetry, or how he can compose a poetry which can be about love and about human. Okay, and that love, and those human who are troubled by negation, by rejection and despair, because he was also rejected for his sexual orientation. So we find that autobiographical trait here in these lines as well. Show an affirming flame. Affirming mean accepting flame, the love which is accepting, the love which is not bound to this only traditional kind according to Auden, but which is accepting everyone. Fine. So that was it. If you find any difficulty in the poem, or if you want any to ask any question, then feel free. Ask it in the comment section. I will try to answer it. So till our next lecture, take care of yourself, stay at home, and Allah Hafiz.